Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Overnight, the United States hit an Iranian ammunition depot with 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs. The president released a video on Truth Social following those strikes where you can see flames rising from the aftermath of those strikes, the destruction just outside the city of Isfahan. While the U.S. and Israel are ramping up pressure on the Islamic Republic, President Trump is still offering Iran a chance at a diplomatic solution.
This remains a truly once-in-a-generation opportunity for the regime to make a good deal with the United States, permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions, and stop acting as the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. If the Iranians reject this golden opportunity, the greatest military in the history of the world continues to stand by to provide President Trump with every option available to ensure this regime continues to pay a grave price.
Iran has continued its ballistic missile attacks against Israel, with 2 waves targeting central Israel last night and another 2 cluster munition strikes this morning against Tel Aviv. While Iran goes after Israel, Gulf countries, and U.S. forces, Iranian leadership is trying to keep the public calm as this war escalates.
And the effort is ongoing to make sure our people do not have any issues in accessing governmental services, inshallah. The government is at the service of you, dear people, with all its might. In our country, in cities and small towns, we are your servants.
With a focus on Iran, Israel has expanded ground operations against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. The military says they've killed dozens of militants in recent days. The IDF announced that 4 additional Israeli soldiers were killed yesterday, bringing the total killed in southern Lebanon since this operation began to 10. On Monday, a funeral was held for one of those soldiers, just 19 years old.
Enough already. Enough of these funerals. Enough of this pain of children who are living and lying here in the ground. What is the value of all these lives? What is the value of all life? Enough of the wars. Make peace already.
With Operation Epic Fury now in week 5, the Pentagon is scheduled to hold a briefing today at 8 a.m. Eastern Time so the public can learn the latest about this military operation. Guys?
That's right. We will be watching and airing it live on Fox News, so stick around for that. Trey Yank's live for us in Tel Aviv. Trey, thank you. Let's bring in Chief Strategist of the Middle East Forum and former U.S. Army Special Forces member Jim Hansen. Jim, good morning to you. The president issued an ultimatum yesterday and laid it out on Truth Social this way, saying if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Strait of Hormuz is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells in Karg Island, which we have purposely not yet touched. Iran is not known for taking these kinds of threats seriously. So do you think that's where we are heading in a week or two, the destruction of Karg Island here?
I think destroying Karg Island is probably not as effective as seizing it or as blockading the exit from the strait through the Gulf of Oman and stopping any ships that may be full of Iranian oil. But it's possible, and I think no one should take the president less than seriously on this. And I've heard people say that blowing up electricity and the infrastructure like that is somehow a war crime, and that's just absolutely not the case, because the IRGC and the regime control all of the infrastructure, and they use it first for military purposes, and second, and sometimes even less than second, for the use of the Iranian people. So it's legal to do. President Trump has told them it could happen, and it's definitely one of the options on the table.
Yeah, what do you make of Iran's parliament speaker, Jim, who is considered a hardliner? He certainly talks a big game publicly, but then behind the scenes, the president revealed that he's the one that allowed the ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which the president described as a gift to the United States. So is he somebody that can be reasoned with?
Well, we're trying. The difficulty is that the religious leaders and the IRGC are not just, extremists. They are some of the most extreme people in the world. Their brand of Islam, 12 or Shia Islam, is an apocalyptic death cult that says they need an Armageddon-like event to bring their Mahdi and rule the world. So you have to try and find someone who's not as infected by that as anyone else. He's one of the people they're talking to, and there are others. You know, they're trying to find someone who's got enough of a following, enough of a hand on the levers of control to actually be able to stop them from continuing this.
Glad you mentioned the Strait of Hormuz. Here's what our Secretary of State Marco Rubio had to say about it. Listen.
Are you consider a plan to ensure full control over the entire strait?
Well, the Straits of Hormuz will be open. When this operation is over, it will be open, and it'll be open one way or another. It will be open because Iran agrees to abide by international law and not block a commercial waterway, or a coalition of nations from around the world and the region, with the participation of the United States, will make sure that it's open. One way or the other, it's going to be open.
But yet, Jim, there's a report in the Wall Street Journal that the president is telling his aides he is willing to end the war without reopening the Strait of Hormuz. What do you make of all this?
I think it would be a less than full success if there is not traffic going through the strait at the end of this. But the goal of this was not to ensure, you know, the full maritime activity. It was to ensure that that Iranian regime did not ever get nuclear weapons. That we're a lot closer to, and they're working on, you know, the last piece of that, which is gathering the enriched material and getting that taken care of, whether we have to seize it or whether in whatever kind of a deal we can make with a regime leader, they turn it over to us. That's the #1 priority. Everything else is secondary to that.
There's also this, Jim. The FBI has confirmed that the man who crashed his pickup truck into a Michigan synagogue was, in fact, inspired by Hezbollah. Here's the U.S. Attorney for the district, the Eastern District of Michigan.
I've seen some odd attempts to explain away or even lessen this terrorist attack by claiming that he was an isolated lone wolf. But that is misleading. Terrorist propaganda is designed to activate the so-called lone wolf to act on behalf of the terrorist organization.
What is the terror threat to the United States as this DHS shutdown also drags on?
Yeah, it's reckless beyond belief for the Democrats to continue to keep an agency that is designed to protect all Americans from operating fully during a time when these kind of threats are active. There is definitely more people who either share the ideology, share a belief, and potentially could be pushed or decide to push themselves towards killing Americans to make a point and, you know, serve a terrorist cause. I think we need to go ahead and be fully active in those investigations and hopefully in arrests before the acts, not to wait until someone does and then be able to put the pieces and connect the dots after the fact.
Yeah, we really do need all hands on deck to target the terrorist propaganda itself, especially online. Make sure it doesn't get into the minds of people who could be radicalized more than others. Former U.S. Army Special Forces and Chief Strategist of the Middle East Forum, Jim Hansen.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.